serious who amongst your high school graduating class had the most tragic adult life? Story 1. I am old, so my graduating class will be on average 43 now. There are many deaths, tragic divorces, etc. The following is the most tragic story among my friends. A girl that I was close to from kindergarten through graduation and stayed in touch with afterwards. She married in her 30s and had trouble conceiving children. She spent 8 years and thousands of dollars in order to get pregnant. She was told it wasn't going to happen. 1 week after the doctor confirmed her only pregnancy in all that time, she was diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor. She died 3 weeks after her beautiful son was born. Story 2. In mid-40s and at primary school ages 4 to 11 was very friendly with a group of other girls, called D, T, and A. As well as our time together at school, we spent our evenings and weekends together, and I have happy memories of long summer holidays playing at each other's homes. D became very sick aged 11 and died of leukemia a year later. T died aged 21 in a car crash with her fiancé. He was driving them home late one night when he lost control of the car and it left the road. All 4 occupants of the car were killed. I'm married, and although I haven't seen her in years, I keep up with news of her via my mum. Last summer my mum phoned me in tears to say that his 12-year-old son had hanged himself in his bedroom after being the victim of bullying at school. My poor beautiful friends. I feel so sad for the suffering each of them has endured. I occasionally see D's dad and I can't begin to describe the pain in his eyes, knowing that D never got the chance to grow up. Story 3. Kid from my school was an amazing musician. He won every possible award for music at the regional state level, then got a full scholarship to a prestigious music school. Freshman year, he died of a brain aneurysm in his sleep. Story 4. My friend finished university, was about to earn his PhD, got out of an abusive relationship, but finally found a nice girl, and then they died together in a car crash. Story 5. A guy in my high school, nice guy, got killed while trying to break up a fight. Edit. It looks like this happens often, sadly, but odds are your story isn't the same as the one I know about. Story 6. Dude I actually went to public school with in the first place. Met his one love in grade 9, they near immediately started dating, attended university near one another, lived together, the works, they get married, have 2 kids, great jobs, everything just lined up perfectly, until he died suddenly of heart failure. Not sure which is more tragic, his passing, or her moving on with 2 kids under 5 without him. Story 7. Girl I had a huge crush on in 11th grade, got pregnant at 17, missed graduation, baby dies the day after they bring it home from a hospital, her boyfriend dies in an alcohol-related car accident a week later, she kills herself the next day. Story 8. A girl I knew, super sweet and very motivated to help others. She became a counselor for people in need and drug addicts, then died of ridiculously rare cancer in her mid-20s. She was better than most of us, and her death is proof there is no justice in the universe. Story 9. I introduced 2 friends in 9th grade, and told them they should date, since they both liked Gundams and anime and Star Wars and Sherlock Holmes, were both in honors English class with me, both drew in class, and so on. He was a great guy, a little reclusive, but smart, talented, funny. Pretty sure that was the first time either of them had looked up from their sketchbooks in class long enough to notice one another, but they started dating later that afternoon. A few months later she got diagnosed with depression and OCD, started seeing a counselor. She was medicated and stable, picked up some physical activity, and gained some healthy coping skills. He kind of got dragged out of his shell. They were really good for one another. It was a fantastic relationship and they were really in love. They stayed together through high school, and when it came time to go off to different colleges, they agreed that if they stayed together in college, they'd get married after. Promise rings exchanged, tearful goodbyes. She spent the next 4 years growing her hair out for their wedding, losing weight so she'd fit her wedding dress, and getting off her meds so they'd be able to have children shortly after marriage. Life was great, and they were really happy, or seemed it. Anyway, they got married, and started realizing life isn't all sunshine and roses. Babies cost money, and so does living in general. He got a practical, boring job, so they could afford her therapy, and the 9-to-5 lifestyle kind of broke his heart, but he did it for her. He was a crazy talented artist, and I think giving it up destroyed something in him. I know a professor of his still emails asking about his work, every now and again. When he suggested she get a real job to help pay the bills, she used a manipulation against him, said things like, if you lose me, you'll be alone forever, and I'm the only one who will ever love you. He believed it. Eventually she broke down and started working with children, since they really were not making enough money with his job, but since she was going to be a mom, wasn't really carrying her share of the financial burden. They were low-grade trying to conceive, but some of the meds she was on have a correlation with lower fertility rates. Then her sisters had babies, and she was still having trouble conceiving. Then her sister and brother-in-laws reproduced too. She stopped working, claiming the stress was making her infertile, and bullied him into a second job. Then she miscarried, and the stress of it pushed her into a full psychotic break. Turns out she'd been hallucinating for years, and just never said anything, because she knew it wasn't normal. Rather than go on meds to stabilize herself, she refused, because she wanted to have a baby. And hey, she'd read online that sometimes having babies cures hormone disbalances, so it might make her normal. That became his hope line. If they had a baby, she'd be normal again. Their life could be about something other than how sick she was. She was trying to run into traffic levels of off-kilter, talking to clocks and arguing with doorknobs, and couldn't get pregnant. Her stints in mental clinics maxed out their debt load, they lost their house, and they still weren't pregnant. Their miracle baby wasn't happening. They moved in with his parents, and borrowed money from hers to get IVF. It took years, used every penny they had. He worked 2 jobs, round the clock, on the hope that she'd recover. While pregnant, she was under round-the-clock suicide watch for 9 months. But that was okay. Their miracle baby was going to cure her insanity. He would have the woman he loved back. They're not allowed to have anything sharp in the house. No knives, no X-Actos, no pencil sharpeners, even. He had to lock his art supplies up, after she got her hands on a pencil sharpener and tried to sharpen her fingers. One day she broke all his Copic markers, tore apart his portfolio, shattered the figurine's head made, shredded his pictures. Years of work, destroyed pretty much all of it. Told him he loved it more than her, and made him promise not to draw again, that if he did, they could be happy again. She gave birth a few months or so ago. They honestly think she's cured. He says she seems normal. Again, they can talk again. He's so happy. Except she was very cheerfully telling my sister her 3-day-old baby nursed for 18 hours, one day, and 16 the day before, and that was down from 20 hours the first day, when she just wouldn't let go of her at all, not even to sleep. She said some other things that indicate to other people we know that she's not all well too. Lattice insane, clinically, and the miracle baby didn't do anything to fix it. He doesn't see it, because he wants so badly for her to be fixed. It's the saddest thing. He was such a cool guy, so ambitious, so talented. He got into art school, and did really well. His professors genuinely thought he'd succeed. His health has suffered, because he eats on the go, and he works so much, and he's still as in love with her now as he was when he was 15, he's like a broken little boy. Story 10 Mark. We sat next to each other not by choice all the way through our final year of middle school. We did not get along back then. We argued and bickered relentlessly every day, and on a few occasions the fights got physical and ended in detentions. Despite many requests by both of us, our form tutor at the time refused to separate us because he weirdly believed that we were actually more alike than we realized and insisted that one day we'd be friends. Just 2 weeks before the end of the school year, Mark simply didn't show up for class. We later found out that Mark's parents were engaged in a bitter divorce battle and Mark's mom had gotten full custody. The dad reacted by effectively kidnapping Mark and driving 300 miles away to the coast where he could live with his son in hiding. With Mark gone, I thought I'd be happier, but I just wasn't. As much as I hated a part of me really hoped the cops would find him and bring him back to us. News of Mark finally came on the very last day of the school year, just as we were about to leave for the holidays. I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. On a Sunday morning, Mark had got up before his father and headed to the beach with his dog. He dug a long tunnel deep into the sand dunes and crawled inside. The tunnel caved in and Mark was buried alive. He was so deep inside that he easily may never have been found had it not been for the dog frantically barking whilst trying to dig him out. It took a whole team of firefighter almost 2 hours to retrieve his body. After hearing the news, I went home and sobbed bitterly into my pillow for the person I honestly thought I despised. I like to think that my form tutor was right, and that we would have one day been friends. I feel sad that he'll never know. Story 11 I knew this girl. She got knocked up. Life was a big joke and a party and a game, and she smoked and drank and did drugs all through the pregnancy. Last I heard, she and her boyfriend were living in a tent. I don't know what became of the baby. He was screwed before he was even born. Poor, I hate her for that. Her and this other chick I knew who kinda did the same stupid. I'm toking for 2, she'd gleefully say as she took a huge bong hit. Story 12 Kid had cancer all his young life, was at death's door numerous times, but always rebounded, had the heart of a lion, never gave up, never surrendered. He was declared cancer-free on his 18th birthday, and got hit and killed by a drunk driver after his senior prom. Story 13 A bit different than the death ones. Almost my entire graduating class attended an evangelical Christian high school, no alternate schools in the area, and most of them wound up married young, uneducated, living paycheck to paycheck, unhappy because they aren't the same people at 35 they were at 18 and are stuck with partners who have nothing in common with them. Consequently, I don't attend reunions. Story 14 My lifelong bully, from early childhood till she dropped out of high school, ended up living a very short, tragic life. She made my life a living. She would jump me and harass me and terrorize me on a daily basis for years. She died of a gastro bleed in her apartment. She was there, alone, dead for about 6 weeks. The apartment manager finally broke in and found her and her 3-month-old baby dead on the floor when she wouldn't answer the phone calls about rent being so late. She bled out. She died of internal bleeding. Her baby starved. No one heard smelled anything due to the way the flats were set up. No one came looking for her except her landlord. Story 15 Nick Aiden, heart of a ball player, works his off all his life to realize his dream of becoming a major league pitcher, finally realizes that dream, starts his first game, and is killed by a drunk driver a few hours later. Rest in peace. Nick. One girl had hydrocephalus. She was a nice girl, quiet, and always seemed to be sick. I was kind of friends with her past graduation, and whenever I was on AIM we would chat a little bit. She always seemed to be getting ready for another surgery, or just had one. On top of that, her personal life was rough. Around 5 relatives of hers died within a span of 3 years. She died age 22 from complications. I wanted to go to the funeral, but it happened while I was across the country. What a sad, shitty way to go. Story 16. Our valedictorian dropped out of college due to his rich parents dying in a tragic accident, and through a series of lawsuits on the estate by business partners, had pretty much nothing left to him, so he moved to northern rural Illinois and works at a factory or a warehouse place. I hear about him through my sister. He has a stable life, but is still incredibly depressed. Story 17. A buddy of mine was worried that he wouldn't get into any colleges, so on a whim he signed his life away to the Marines. A few weeks after enlisting he receives acceptance letters from every school he applied to. He has a miserable time in the military but makes it home after 4 years or so. He was a different guy after he came back. One weekend he plans a get-together at his house and doesn't invite anyone till the day of no one is able to make it. A few days later, after a dumb disagreement with his dad, he goes in his backyard and shoots himself. Maybe it was PTSD or some form of depression, but he was loved by his family and loved by us. It's something my friends and I will never understand. Story 18. Kid ID. Known most of my life, found his mom's body after she committed suicide when he was a kid. It obviously messed him up and he wrestled with depression his whole life. But the thing was, he was a great guy and everyone loved him. He was just a mess on the inside. 6 months after graduating from college, he killed himself. Story 19. The guy that used to bully me in elementary school ended up getting testicular cancer. I think he's still alive, but last I heard he wasn't doing well at all. We're only 25. Story 20. To know if tragic, but definitely noteworthy. The guy who I got kicked out of our high school prom with for taking as a date gay dates were a no-no in the 90s died a few years back. The guy had apparently been doing shitloads of methadone and Xanax, which is supposed to kill you. But that wasn't what killed him. We were all astounded to learn that he in fact died from an actually medicinal prescription drug he was on reacted badly with some Sudafed he took. Crazy. Also, the cute innocent Christian girl I always thought was pretty and would have died to be with. She ended up basically becoming a child support seeker, and has had 3 kids by 3 different fathers who all pay her child support. Conversely, the girl who used to openly brag about blowing multiple guys went to college with me, graduated, and is about to open her own law firm. Story 21. Cody Roman Dial. Knew him as Roman. His father is a famous adventurer also named Roman. Interesting guy, friendly, and spent a lot of time abroad with his family on annual research trips. Always had fascinating adventures to share with us. His life isn't tragic. He is the only person from my graduating class that I know of who's passed away. He went missing in Corcovado, Brazil, Costa Rica in 2014. His father would spend the next 2 years searching for him. To me, that is the tragic part. His remains were finally discovered just this past May. National Geographic made a 6-part documentary on the search and possible murder of Roman. Story 22. Went to a small prep school in CT with a graduating class of 51. There was 3 to 4 black kids in our school Indian, BTW, who were recruited to play sports. One of these kids, let's call him Ty, was an awesome dude who was popular, athletic, and just a nice guy all around. He came from a working class family and was the first person in his family to go to college. 2 years in, he fails out by just not going to class. He comes back home and tries to make it as a rapper. He was horrible and didn't have any success in that. One day, I see an article in the local paper that he's been arrested for stalking a woman in the street and exposing himself to her. A few months later, he's caught doing the same thing in the local library. It was quiet for a couple years after. Then a friend texts me an article that he was arrested twice in 3 days for exposing himself to 2 different women, both senior citizens. They showed his mugshot and he looked homeless. I spoke to a mutual acquaintance and from what I've heard, Ty doesn't think he needs help and his family doesn't believe in modern medicine. Story 23. Our most likely to succeed has 4 kids with 2 different women, has been arrested for domestic violence, is on his 2nd marriage and left his first bride to be at the altar, lost his house to foreclosure, lives in a trailer, and cannot hold down a job for more than 2 years. Story 24. One of mine year below though had her entire family including extended family murdered by one of her cousins. For whatever reason she stayed at a friend's house the night they were all murdered at her house. Story 25. A couple years after graduation they found a good friend of mine with his truck in a ditch and wandering around in a daze. They took him in for OWI but ended up not charging him because he hadn't been drinking. Turned out to be a brain tumor. He initially responded to chemo and went into remission. A few years later it came back with a vengeance and took his life. Story 26. There was a kid in my class whom I didn't know too well. I saw him in the news one day shot dead from defending his little brother from bullies. Tragic way to go. I remember him being a smart kid. Story 27. One of my best friends from high school worked her off to help support her mom and sisters during high school. She helped raise her deadbeat cousin's daughter. She took honors classes and was our student president, among other extracurriculars. She stayed at home to go to a community college, received her associates, then moved about an hour away to go to a state university for her bachelor's. Toward the end of her first year at the uni, she died in a tornado. Story 28. He died 6 months and a day ago. He was an okay person. His friend who was driving had passed the license driving test 2 months before. The car was old, the road wet, it was night, there is a tricky curve. The car went on the other side of the road and crushed against an incoming stronger car. The people in the other car survived. 3 guys in the totaled car died, 1 got extremely injured. I came there not much after paramedics and police. It was really scary. I didn't get to know who was involved till the morning. I have to drive on that road every day on my commute. His mother sometimes visits mine because they are friends. We grew up together, and it feels so unreal to visit his tomb. Edit a word. Story 29. A lot of these are downright depressing. Mine isn't that horrible, he's living life, but it was a real so that's how the world works scenario. In school with the same kid since kindergarten. Says he's going to go to Harvard. He is brilliant and also works like crazy to make sure that he always has the highest grade but wasn't about it. He was friendly and would help you if you were struggling. He played several instruments, did volunteer through his church, did sports, worked with local refugees, just an all-around good smart guy that you wouldn't wish ill on. He was number 1 in our high school class, and we lived outside of Boston. He got almost perfect SATs, he didn't get in. What rubbed salt in the wound was that the number 2 person in our school got in and was a legacy at Harvard. Her great-grandfather, grandfather, father, and 2 brothers all went there, had worse SAT scores and almost no extracurricular activities. And unless an extraordinary case, Harvard doesn't seem to accept multiple people from the same Boston area high school. He ended up going to BU, which isn't a bad school, but it's not any place that I ever would have expected to see him attend. He's now on his way to becoming a doctor after being an EMT for several years, so he's doing okay. TLDR: learned from classmate that you can work hard and be the best, and still get dicked over by someone because of who they are. Story 31. Guy, who was an average kid in school, but joined the military and was doing really well, getting promoted and then he broke his back during a training accident and got medicaled out. Now he's stuck doing shitty fast food jobs. He just lost his mother a few months ago to an illness. A few grades ahead of me there was a girl who was wicked smart and talented. She played several sports, was in band, won a Louis Armstrong Jazz Award, member of the chess team, math league, remembered 1,027 digits of pi etc., graduated college, escaped the Midwest, married her wife. And then she dies in her sleep on Thanksgiving from a brain aneurysm at 26. I just looked back at her obituary, and got so mad that the universe took such a gifted person away from this world. Story 31. Didn't graduated with me, but one of the girls that I knew in school is blind. Was very weird to see her in the street and realize that she went blind. Story 32. I don't keep up with most of them. I like the classes ahead of and behind mine better, but I know of 2 that were pretty tragic. The yearbook class clown ended up dying of a heroin overdose a few years ago. He was a pretty nice guy, never took anything seriously, and teachers told him all the time he'd never amount to anything. I wonder if all of that affected him. And a girl I graduated with went missing a few years ago. She had 2 kids and just never came home one day. It's assumed that she was killed, but her body has never been found. I follow pages about her on FB and it's sad. Her parents are still looking for answers and her kids are getting older and want answers as well. I hope they at least get peace of mind someday. Story 33. Guy who was behind me in alphabetical order and therefore had a locker next to me all through high school got arrested the summer after graduation for fondling a 6-year-old. Story 34. Story below. There was this kid in my high school class nicknamed B for anonymity. He was on the varsity basketball team, extremely well liked, and just a good kid. I don't think this kid had a bad bone in his body. All he wanted to do was go to church, please his parents, and go to college by playing basketball. He was good too. He got a full scholarship to one of our state universities at the beginning of his senior year. Then came prom. His date was a really good friend of mine and they both ended up back at my house at the end of the night. He was worried about getting up in time for church the next morning, so he said his goodbyes to everyone and left. He ended up falling asleep at the wheel, crossed a median and hit another driver head-on. Both of them were killed. I found out on the drive down to the beach that afternoon, and it was just surreal. School was very, very quiet that week. Story 35. Depends on if you count being a murder tragic. Classmate got involved in a gang senior year, then killed an old man for money, got caught, and looks like he'll be in prison for life. He broke out for 2 days roughly before he got caught about 60 miles out stealing a car. Story 36. I have a cousin whom I treat as a real brother. He never leaves me in any situation, even at troubles. He'll always be there. He is such a good guy, but it seems life played a very bad joke on him. After his father died from an accident, got electrocuted from a high-voltage wire, he decided not to go to college to help his family. He never takes a ride from house to work so he can save more money to pay for the bills, food and education of his brother and sisters. I remember him wanting to court a lady, but he doesn't have any money or nice clothes. So what me and my other friends do, I let him use some of my shirts and pants. A friend of ours provided him with a pair of shoes and lent him his motorcycle so he won't spend any money on transportation. That time, the only thing he wears that was his underwear. That's how bad his situation is. I remember him coming to my house, saying they only got 2 eggs and few rice for a meal which will be shared to his 5 family members. So I gave him some groceries and just told him not to tell his family that it came from me. I promised him that if I will make it big in this life, he'll make sure that he'll be included in my luck. I was able to secure a good job in abroad and I brought him from our country to work here. He was able to save a few money before going back. He got a lot of story but it will be too long to read. I just wish he finds true happiness. Story 37. Chris was a Marine who survived multiple combat deployments only to die outside his barracks room in North Carolina. Right before he was about to deploy for a 3rd time, his girlfriend and parents came down to visit him. Him and his girlfriend got drunk and began to argue at a bar, so he walked back to his room. He got to his door and couldn't find his keys, so he punched his glass window out of frustration. He punched the window so hard he fell through, slicing his arm almost completely off from his armpit to his shoulder. 2 other Marines were outside smoking and witnessed the entire thing. They attempted to stop the bleeding, but he cut right through a major artery. Later it was revealed that his room key was in his pocket the entire time. A lot of people tried throwing his girlfriend under the bus and blaming it on her, but in reality Chris was a drunk who was possibly suffering from PTSD. Story 38. Coolest guy I knew. I wanted to be him. He was so rad. He dropped out of high school in 10th and went and got his GED so he could start working and making money. Seemed like a real smart move to me. Then later he got hooked on heroin and his name appeared in the newspaper. Had gotten super high in a movie theater and was found by the ushers after the film was over and the lights came back up. The ambulance came and revived him and he was arrested and sent to the hospital. I saw him once after that. He and I were both working jobs, but I was on my way up and finishing my degree. He was definitely not. Story 39. 5 years ago, one of my best friends in the world was scheduled to have her tonsils removed because she was having constant sore throats that nothing seemed to fix. During routine pre-surgery blood work, it was found that her white blood cell count was off the charts. She was immediately hospitalized and soon after, diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia at the age of 25. She spent months in and out of the hospital with round after round of aggressive chemo. 5 months later, she was deemed in remission and had a bone marrow donor lined up for a bone marrow transplant that would hopefully cure her. That donor backed out at the last minute. She never got the transplant. She continued on chemo up until August of 2012, 1 year after her diagnosis. She was done with her latest round of chemo. Talked to her on the 19th of August and she was fine. 3 days later, I get a call that she was being placed in hospice. She went downhill rapidly. I made a 3-hour drive to see her one last time. At that point she was unconscious. She passed away before I made it home that night, less than 3 hours after I had seen her. I miss her every day. I just got married and her absence was definitely felt. Story 40. We had a petite, quiet, nicer woman that died in a house fire possibly set by an ex of hers. We also have an accused childmaker who is spending a long time in prison. Story 41. Graduated in the early 80s. A girl from my class was dating a guy from our class and soon after graduation he while drunk totaled the car they were in and she was partially paralyzed. After few years in a wheelchair and lots of painful physical therapy she was able to walk again. Then she met another guy, contracted AIDS from him and died. Never made it out of her 20s. Story 42. Friend of my sister's, who I also had a nice lil crush on, had a rough go after high school. To this day, the most genuine, pure person I have ever met. I moved away but she stayed in town. Good in school but dirt poor. She couldn't go to college. So she got to work at McDonald's. Got knocked up by some who beat her up and left her. Ended up having the kid by herself. Her mother begrudgingly let her into her house, but abused the kid physically and tormented my sister's friend. Being that she had nowhere else to go, she had to live in this unsupportive, and kept working fast food. I come back to town after my first year of college and find out the hard way she's working fast food by pulling through the restaurant while she's working. She surprised me at the checkout window. Her face immediately lighted up and talked positively about how she was doing, even though I knew otherwise, and so did she. That was her spirit. A year later she gets diagnosed with a brain tumor at 22 and dies a few months after, orphaning that poor kid. Her mother didn't help with medical bills and she couldn't afford it on her own. What might not have been a death sentence became one very quick. She died alone with no one at her side. I miss her terribly to this day. And keep her alive in my mind as a reminder that life is unfair, and even the best people can get a bad roll of the dice. Feel thankful that your life is boring and normal. Story 43. I went to a small high school. This friend was actually a grade below me. She went on to college, but somewhere around sophomore year got strep throat, I believe it was, which turned into meningitis, which led to brain swelling and a coma for about a year. Eventually she came out of it, but she is basically brain dead. Can't talk or control her movements. No real reactions to anything. She's just there. Her family is drowning in debt. Our hometown raised $60K to help cover some of their medical bills, and her boyfriend she had at the time she fell ill still has her listed as his girlfriend on Facebook. Out of guilt, I'm assuming. Anyways, last I heard she's living out her life in a nursing home with 247 care. She is 27. Story 44. One of my classmates was hit by a truck while riding his bike, just a few weeks before graduation. Technically he didn't make it to adult life, but it was tragic because he was just such a friendly guy. Story 45. She married her first boyfriend ever, 1992 or so I believe. They have a daughter and a nice house. Cue the year 2000. Her best friend died. 1 year later her sister died in a car accident in Oswell. Another year later the best friend from her husband died in a motorbike accident. 2004 her cousin died and 2005 surprisingly no one died. 2006 the father from her husband died. 1 year later the mother died. 2007 it turned out her husband actually got abusive due to all the stuff that happened and they divorced. They were pretty much the dream pairing that we all knew. It was a shock. 1 month later she find out her daughter has a tumor in her brain that cannot be removed since it's too big or SDH, and might kill her during the operation. She is still going strong, but has constant headaches and has to go constantly to the doctor. She is 22 now. 2010 the mother found a boyfriend who was very nice and you could watch how her mood lifted the more she was around him. 2011 his parents' new boyfriends died. 2012 another close friend died. 2013 her father died. 2014 was pretty calm for her standards, and 2015, well guess, her boyfriend died due to a heart attack. Somewhere in between she lost her job and house, and a lot of good friends cut communications off. I seriously wonder what sins she must have had in her previous life to be punished like that. Story 46. We had a guy that seemed to have all the breaks. Daddy was rich and mommy was good looking. His dad paid for an undergrad degree at USC and Stanford Law School. When we turned 30 he had life by the and was looking at a seat in the US Congress. Then he got greedy. The SEC busted a small-time stockbroker that had an alarmingly high success rate in picking stocks about to take off and shorting stocks about to crash. He took a deal and implicated our boy and 2 other junior partners in an insider trading scam. They provided him with the tips and he told a small network of investors, all while managing their accounts using clever schemes as their kids' and pets' names. He did 5 years in federal prison, and lost everything. His wife and kids moved back to where she came from. His parents disowned him, and as a convicted felon, he couldn't find any work. He thought he could make it as a small-time drug dealer. He was wrong. He spent much of his last 15 or so years in and out of prison on drug-related charges. He died in 2008 of complications due to HIV. Do your own math on that. Edit spelling. Story 47. Well, I haven't paid attention to all of their lives too much post-grad, but there was one girl who I was in grades 9 and 10 with, friendly girl, kind of had a wild child attitude, liked to cuss and drink a lot. After grade 10, she wasn't at my high school anymore, and I found out that she had been sent to boarding school presumably because she was a bit out of control. Didn't think about her for a while, but then she showed up at our grade 12 grad unexpectedly and looked really happy and content with life. Then 2 months later her father, mother and little brother died in a car accident. She came to uni for a while. Don't know how long she stayed. She looked really sad whenever I saw her, but a lot of people were supportive of her and were there for her to help her through it. That was kind of nice to see. Edit. While racking my brains, I now recall a mutual acquaintance of me and this girl saying that she had been drinking a lot after the incident. I tried looking her up on Facebook but could not find anything. Maybe she got married and changed her name, I dunno. Shrug also had a guy who was run over by a train 10 years after graduation, but I don't know a ton of the details there.